inside your headphones.
I can hear you good.
All right, here we go. So we're recording now. I'm going to start up with, all right, here we go. Yes, and we are live. I am here in, I guess, where are we? I know I'm in like Seattle, but a suburb of Seattle. Where are we at?
We're in Sumner, Washington, so just north of Tacoma and Puyallup and south of Seattle.
So it's just south of Seattle. I'm here with Jon Isaacson.
Yeah.
And we are at Three Kings, where you're working.
Where the magic happens.
The magic happens. Jon, I'm going to go ahead and let you do an introduction for yourself. Let everybody know kind of who you are and what you do. And I know you're doing quite a bit, and we'll get into it all. But what's your daily gig?
So daily, I work here for Three Kings Environmental, and so we're a company that does. We have an office here in Sumner. Tacoma, Seattle, and then we have an office down in Vancouver, Washington, so Vancouver, Portland area. And we work in Washington and Oregon. We do asbestos abatement, which is kind of the area that I'm working in, demolition, and we do site prep, civil work, and environmental, like tanks and those kinds of things. So
okay, I'm gonna have you just come into the mic just a little bit closer. So with the asbestos work, where are you seeing? Where's the majority of your work being done right now?
Well, the majority of the work for the company traditionally has been like in public bids and things like that. So schools and I wouldn't say government work, but like larger scale contracts and those kinds of things. And one of the things we talked about when I signed on is kind of pursuing, in restoration, there's a lot of asbestos abatement that you come across, in the course of a water damage or a fire damage. So we've been It's kind of the reverse of where the last 17 years or so I've been working with property restoration companies. Now I get a market to and work with them, provide a service to property restoration companies.
So you've been doing restoration work for how long?
I think, I'm trying to remember, I think it was 2002 I started with a service master down in California, so 17, 18 years, roughly.
Started in California, now you're in Seattle.
Yeah.
So you've had some travel in between.
Yeah.
So going back to, so you're in the restoration world, now you're providing the service of the asbestos removal to the restoration contractors. Now are there, so outside, I know how they find it, right? They're going to go into someone's house, there's a water, fire, damage, and they're going to start removing some material.
Yeah, it's on the floor, it's in the wall, it's in the pop corner.
And so, and I'm unfamiliar with this. So, are you like, how do you? What materials are you testing? How? I guess what's the process to find out if your job has asbestos and needs removal?
Well, some of the telltale, like schools, the 9x9 tiles, right?
And that's on the floor? 9x9 tiles? Okay.
9 inch by 9 inch tiles is usually a telltale for the period of time when, and a lot of times it can be in the tiles or it can be in the mastic, the black mastic a lot of people talk about, and the glue that they use to apply it.
And that's the mastic is the glue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Sorry. And then in homes, you have a dishwasher leak, right? And you've got a home that was built in the 60s or something like that. So it could be in the joint compound for the drywall. It could be in the texture for the drywall. It could be in the wallboard itself. And then you got, again, the floors. So maybe there's nowadays you got a pergo floor over the top or a laminate type floor, but then underneath there's that sheet vinyl with those gold flecks in it or something like that.
Okay.
And so, the older the house.
So it's really a time period is what we're looking at.
Yep. In the 70s, they made it illegal, but they allowed anybody that had stock to kind of work through what they had.
Okay.
And so you see applications. And asbestos is like these tiny fibers, and it makes products, last a long time, and they're heat resistant, those kind of things. So it had some superior capacity, but then, and that's like, we had a customer call a couple days ago, and they're asking about some asbestos, and they're looking to buy a house, and I said, well, are you planning to do extensive remodels? And they're like, no, it's been remodeled, it was identified, we just want to know if it's still in the home. And I said, well, if you're not planning on doing any extensive remodels in the near future, as long as even if it is there, if it's intact and in good shape, and it's not, like the popcorn ceiling's not crumbling and coming down, then it's not. You want to know that it's there, but and act appropriately, but it's not as much of an issue, in that regard.
Okay.
So if you don't disturb it, and that's why in schools you can still have it in schools as long as they're maintaining it and keeping it.
So as long as it's not being disturbed in the air, is that when?
Yeah, they call it friable, right? When it's so that popcorn, those little beads of popcorn.
Yep.
If you were to crush one of those when they're dry, there's dust and you could see particles in the air, and that's when it can, technically be more dangerous if you breathe that in or something like that.
So it kind of reminds me on the electrical side. We have the old knob and tube.
Yeah.
Where it's almost like if you don't disturb it.
Yep. Yeah.
But then once you start disturbing it or trying to tie into it, it's like, okay, we need to update, we need to upgrade.
Yeah. Well, and that knob and tube is a lot of that, some of that coating along those wires that has asbestos in it too.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay.
And so, but again, like you said, if it's functional and how many people are going and messing with the wires, so.
Now, how do you test a material for asbestos?
Typically, like in this office here, which we've got drywall on the walls and ceilings, and then we've got commercial grade carpet, right? So, you take several samples of the ceiling and the walls. The texture's the same, so we call that a homogeneous area.
Okay.
You take a minimum of like a quarter size sample and send that to the lab, and then they separate the different layers.
Okay,
and break down its composition. Yeah. So
it isn't. That's what I was trying to figure out. If it's something that like you walk in and you're like, you have a little meter and it beeps and it's like, oh, we got asbestos right here.
Yep,
okay, no. So it's going to a lab.
Yep.
How long does that process take?
We can. There's labs locally where we can go and we can get an assessment, or a return, within an hour or two. You pay a premium.
Oh, so it's pretty. Obviously. It can be pretty quick though.
And then, on a typical survey, we'll send it to a lab and, get like a 3-day turnaround, And so just depends. If you need immediate results, most of the time you can get them.
Okay. And now let's say once you find that building or that material that has asbestos, the process for removing it and then also what safety precautions are you taking to keep yourself safer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's so when I started in restoration, it was mold remediation, right? So you suit up, you set a containment, your environmental controls, your neg air, and most of the things we do in mold remediation came from asbestos abatement. We're following those same protocols for the most part. The only difference is mold, except for a few states, isn't regulated. Whereas asbestos, if you don't follow the rules and you're not protecting your employees, you can face prison time or fines.
Oh, there's some penalties, some punishments there. Okay.
Yeah, people, and it's pretty wild when you read in the paper. There was some up north last year, and it's just nobody's wearing PPE. They're I think one recent one, they're pulling siding off the house, and the neighbor goes, "I have asbestos siding on my house. I'm pretty sure that's asbestos siding. Okay. Shouldn't you guys be doing something different?" And they kind of just waved her off, or I don't remember all of the details. And so then L&I comes out, and which is kind of the local version of OSHA.
I was just going to say, what's L&I? Okay.
Labor and Industries. They regulate asbestos here in Washington.
Okay.
DEQ or OSHA would be down in Oregon. I'm not sure if it's the same in Indiana.
OSHA.
OSHA.
Yep.
And so, so there's a lot of ways you can get in trouble. For the most part, if you are, containing it, you've got environmental controls with your neg air, and you're putting your people in the right PPE with the right respirators, and they're following the right processes, you can remove it safely and keep other people safe,
Now, what about disposing of it? Is there?
Yeah, it has to. Most of the time, it has to be double bagged, like 6 mil, or if you build a burrito, it's got to be double layer. You saw the barrels when you came in, stuff like vinyl floor and asbestos siding that can puncture the bags. A lot of times we use those barrels.
Okay.
But then it has to go to a regulated landfill, and it's typically more expensive to dispose of it than regular waste. And that's the big thing now. If people do a remodel or there's a demo, most landfills want a piece of paper showing that the property you took it from has been tested and abated before they'll even accept your waste,
Oh, okay.
And that's another area where people have gotten, there's stories of asbestos companies or people that, got rid of asbestos, knew it was asbestos, buried it in the backyard, or took it out in the woods. So when you're willfully doing something wrong, you're opening yourself up to get in trouble.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So that's what you're doing here daily.
Like a 9 to 5. Yeah.
Now, is that what Three Kings does, or is that just a service that they offer?
That's one of our. So we have kind of, I guess it would be 4 divisions. We have the asbestos abatement, the demo. So asbestos abatement and demo obviously go hand in hand. We're going to knock a building down. We've got to get rid of the asbestos before we knock it down, and then and our demo team does a lot of say maybe site prep to kind of level out an area, maybe bring the gravel in, those kinds of things, terminate the utilities and those kinds of things. And then we have a civil team that'll do some of the more extensive site prep or recondition the site for whatever's coming in next and start that process. And they've been doing some cool projects too, with some parks and those kinds of things. And then we have an environmental team, and a lot of what they do, I'm still learning a lot about, all those different divisions, but they'll do heating and oil tanks in the ground and site surveys and those kinds of things. If you're trying to determine, again, if this structure here, a standard office, it was getting knocked down and repurposed into something else. You've got to do your site survey, you've got to do your abatement, you've got to do your demo, and then you've got to do the site prep. And so Three Kings is able to do kind of all of that process. Yeah.
So you're handling a lot of, hazardous material, making sure it's dealt with in a safe way and disposing of it safely also.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and kind of reconditioning a site for whatever its new purpose is going to be, So
getting it prepped for the new structure.
Yep.
Okay. So now I understand that a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas property restoration, a lot of it's the interior work, right? This is more like the site work, So very similar, but very different.
I can see where there's an overlap, but that does help me understand what you're doing here versus I'm pretty familiar with the water
property
restoration and the fire restoration side, so this was always kind of a topic for me. I'm like, I really don't know what that is or what. So so very good, thank you for educating me on that. I appreciate it. And that's kind of your day job, but then you also have some side stuff that you do, which is more, what do I say, like your passion.
I like we were talking about before, I enjoy writing, so I've always written, and even when I started with Service Master, when we did mold remediation, it was new, right? That was I think it was Ed McMahon had mold in his house in Texas. I believe it was in Texas. That was one of the big cases that broke that kind of made mold, popular. Mold's been around since the beginning of time, right? It's ubiquitous. And so we started doing, and that's back in the days when some people remember insurance companies paid for mold remediation as an extension of water damage, and so there was money to be made, and it was kind of an evolving field. And like most things, if people are getting sued and big amounts of money are changing hands, then there's going to be a reaction. And so
people are paying attention now.
Yeah, and so. So we were starting a new division within an existing restoration company, and like a lot of restoration companies, we also had the carpet cleaning division. Those kind of, all that evolution goes hand in hand. So we had to start writing kind of like our SOPs and our training manuals and stuff like that. So I enjoyed doing that, and that was one of my responsibilities, was helping to put together a training program and standard operations and procedures and those kinds of things as we brought new people in, to kind of get some consistency in what we were doing. And so out of that, I continued to write and, wrote some articles and those kinds of things. And so I guess Diojo, that came when I was in Oregon, talking about Diojo means the do your own job.
Well, let's say, we haven't talked about Diojo. I know a little bit about it, but anyone who's listening right now, we haven't talked about Diojo yet. So, are you ready? You ready to go there? And
yes, I'm sorry if I jumped ahead, but
No, you're fine. I just want to make sure that that we give enough background and so people understand.
Oh, as far as like
so you
restoration,
started with the writing, with some manuals.
Yeah.
Continue with articles. Were you blogging also? Were you doing some?
Well, I guess so. The evolution of Diojo and my property restoration career kind of go hand in hand. So at Service Master, in California, I'm really thankful and debt of gratitude to my manager. There was a man named Denis person, and he was a really good manager, and so which is interesting to me because I've talked to other people, and a lot of people when they get into management, right, or start out in their management career, it's like, hey, you've been doing good in the field, you're now a supervisor,
Okay.
So you've been doing good running your own stuff, now you're managing other people, no training, no like, hey, this is how you encourage people, this is how you talk to people, this is how you get other people. People have different ways that they receive and give information, and then as you climb the ranks, a lot of times that inconsistency is all around, right? You're the manager now, hey, we fired that guy, you're the manager, or
Okay.
you were doing good at this, so now we're going to promote
Just
you.
saying more of a title without the training.
What do they call it? The Peter principle, right? Promote somebody to the level to where they become incompetent, and so you were competent at this, so we put you here, not necessarily thinking through whether you have that skill set or even whether we can help you develop that skill set. It's just, you're good at this, so you must be good at that.
So, okay.
And that's not always the case, right? Most people can figure it out, but going back to my experience, I had a good manager that said, hey, this is what I've learned, this is how I approach things, and so he was very good at both teaching me what he knew, but also allowing me to experiment and kind of fail, the freedom to fail, and learn as we go, and that kind of thing. And so that was really, I can see my experience isn't the norm for a lot of people that get into leadership positions and those kinds of things. So so that was great. And then like I went from there into work for a smaller, so that was in California. We moved to Oregon, so I was working for a smaller company, a family-run company in Portland for a little while. Worked for a construction company in Salem to kind of start restoration division basically from the ground up. And then the market took a turn, and I went out on my own. So then I had an experience of starting my own business, like you and I have been talking about with GMS. And then the market completely crashed in 2009. We went from winter of 2008 to having work booked, and then 2009 it just silent. And so
I remember.
Yeah. Were you doing electrical in 2009?
I was doing electrical. My hours got pretty much cut in half.
Yeah.
This was GMS and power well, GMS didn't even exist yet. I was making power boxes on a side hustle, and really started focusing more time during that crash because I had time off and had to pay bills somehow. So I started.
When had you first started working like with restoration companies?
I was doing like 07, 08.
Okay.
Somewhere in there.
And doing more of the traditional spider box installation type of thing?
Well, no, for me, when I started just making my own spider boxes.
Well, I guess that was, so when did that, because the traditional spider box, right, you got the tail into whatever the power source is, right, or to the panel.
Right.
And then you're trying to distribute more power for setting up equipment or whatever. So at what point were you like, I think I can do this different?
So for me, let's see. So for me at first, it was just about saving a couple buddies money.
Okay.
I had a good friend that was looking at some power distribution equipment. He was going to spend about $1,500 on it. And I was like, dude, I can do that for like $450.
And just build it completely from scratch.
Yeah, I can just build it for you. So that was where it started for me, was just making some things to save somebody money.
Yeah.
And then I was working for a Paul Davis Systems. We were subcontracted by a Paul Davis Systems, and I was on the fire side.
Go-to electrician type of thing.
I was on the fire side, so I was in charge of getting to the fire right after it happened, getting circuits cleared, getting power turned back on, getting it safe a safe environment for guys to come in and work and start demo, provide some temporary circuits, that kind of thing. So that was the side I was on. So we never used power distribution over there.
Yeah, because it's out.
We would just I would just drop plugs or get a circuit back on or whatever I needed to do. But I did know the water guys. So once my friend Chris Laney at Water out of Fort Wayne, once I knew he was using the boxes and he's loving them, so I went over there. It was like, hey, do you guys need these too? And they're like, oh yeah, we could use some of those. So made some for them. And then going back to the crash and when my hours get cut, then I start driving around Fort Wayne going, hey, does anybody else need these? Going to every restoration company and then even branching out a little bit and making the trip to Indianapolis and checking down there. But yeah, it was all a way just to supplement my hours as an electrician, kind of going out. In Fort Wayne, like, I don't even know that I would have a company right now if I lived anywhere else other than Fort Wayne. And the reason, Indianapolis is 2 hours away. Columbus, Ohio, 3 hours. Cincinnati, Ohio, 3 hours. Cleveland, Ohio, 3 hours. Detroit, 2.5. Chicago, 3.
No.
I had a lot of very big markets at my disposal.
Right.
And so I worked it out with my dad because we would work 2 or 3 days a week during that crash. There wasn't any work there.
Yeah.
So I was like, give me like 2 days back to back. Give me a Thursday and a Friday, or give me a Monday and a Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then I would take those days, drive over to Cleveland and start checking with water restoration company. Yeah. And I was selling. I think I sold maybe 80 of them that year, which really, helped out the income a lot. And then it was off of those sales that we finally get a distributor. It was a sales rep for a distributor, Ramsco, that saw one of the power boxes, was like, hey, where did you get that? And then I get a call. Long story short.
Were those early ones plastic?
The early ones were metal.
Okay.
Yeah, they were metal.
You're just using like a panel box?
I was using an air conditioner disconnect.
No kidding.
Yeah, so I was using an air conditioner disconnect, and then I was mounting 2 4-square boxes to that, and then installing 4 plugs in those, and
wow.
Yeah, and then I made up my different adapters and different cords.
Yeah.
And put it in a bag, and that was
that
was the whole kit.
Like a shopping bag, or
it was we were using like a soft-sided tool bag.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just put everything in there, and then get that. That was how we were getting them out. Once Ramsco approached me, they were interested in distributing it nationwide, but it needed to be UL listed.
Okay.
And then at that point, then we could make it out of plastic, which is safer for everybody to use. Made out of plastic, got a UL listed, got it into a Ramsco's hands, and they just took off with it.
Okay, so 07 or so, you're working with restoration companies, and then, you're just as an electrician.
As an electrician, yeah.
So by 09, you're starting to see some traction, and then obviously the impetus with the market being down, like, hey, I can either sit and cry about it, or I can try to do something. Which is interesting because, people say, is it luck or is it skill? And it's a little bit of both,
it's
right?
Both.
You have to have the skill to put yourself in a position to reap the luck.
To get luck.
Yeah.
To be lucky.
Yeah. Which has been, every time I've entered a new market, I don't know any other way than just hitting the pavement and meeting people, right? Because they don't know you exist, and that's the first hurdle is exposure, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So 09, so you start getting some traction. You sold 80 roughly. In that 09 to 010 or to 010, 2010.
Yeah. In that year, it was in 08, 09, beginning of 10 is where we put in for our UL listing.
That's when so late 09.
Late 09.
Aransco approached you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so is that once you had a Ramsco and felt like you had distribution? Is that when you started looking at basically manufacturing them yourself then? You're already manufacturing, but more kind of what would you say, like more of a professional?
Well,
did the UL listing force you to?
So the UL listing forced the product to be and look the way it does right now.
Gotcha.
They weren't going to accept the metal boxes that I had screwed together. So it needed to be a more professional. It needed to be
and there wasn't anything else that you could use that was.
No, so we just ended up making
we
just ended up making our own enclosure.
Yeah.
And then got it UL listed. Then we were building those. In my garage. I set up a little workbench and was building them there. And then I ended up renting just a 2-car garage.
Wow.
And set up shop in there, and I was doing that for. Let's see, I'm trying to think back.
Are you primarily at this point? You're the primary. You get the. Are you getting products shipped in then now as far as the boxes and the components?
So all of our plastic was made in Fort Wayne.
Okay.
So I was able to order in bulk from them, but then they just stored it at their location for me. And so I had a lot of help as far as logistics in getting started.
Yeah. Were these people that you already knew, or that you had to kind of reach out and?
That was, when I needed to find an injection molded plastic, I just kind of went on the internet. This is. I think it was actually at yellowpages.com back then.
No kidding.
And found some plastic. People drove around. I think I walked in the door to 3 companies. One of the companies actually talked to me, and and it got started right there. I remember. I got lucky when I walked into it's Accutech Molding Machine in Fort Wayne, and in their old building, they have a beautiful building now, but back they had in their old building. I walked into one of the offices, and the guy that I needed to talk to that made all the decisions happened to be dropping something off on a desk.
Wow.
No one else was there, and he's like, "Can I help you with something?" And I was like, "Yeah." I start talking to him, and
his wheels start spinning.
And he's like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, we can do that." But I don't think if there would have been a secretary sitting there instead, I don't know that I would have ever got there, because I'm like, "Hey, I'm a kid that has an idea, and I have no idea what to do about it. Can you help?"
Yeah. That's wild.
And that was, and he did.
Well, and then it happened to be in your hometown too. That's crazy.
So logistically, they held some material for me, so I would just go over there, grab what I needed for basically the week or whatever I could fit in my garage that I was working out of. And there was a lot of things like that, like just having places stored. I know the bags that I got, I was getting those originally from Do It Best Center, Do It Best hardware store.
Okay.
Where I was originally getting bags, and they would do the same thing. They had a pallet back there for me, and I would come in. I'd prepay for them, but then they just sat there, and I'd grab them as I needed them.
Yeah.
So, I had a lot of help in the beginning and getting parts. A lot of the internal components all came from Menards, which you guys don't have Menards out here, do you? I think it's a Midwest, it's like a Lowe's,
I know I've
Home
heard
Depot.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have Ace here in Washington. We have McClendon's. You'll probably get familiar with them now.
Okay.
Down here.
Yeah, this is the first I've heard of them. But now that I'm out
here,
a
regional supplier.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then got a lot of components from Menards, and they were able to work with me on quantities and just kind of getting me what I needed to get started.
Yeah.
And then as we grew from there, we did get to a point where I outgrew the 2-car garage, but it was kind of a couple of things going on. I had some personal stuff going on where I needed to be more available, more at home.
Sure.
And then also I had just logistically, I couldn't afford the overhead. I didn't have enough business to afford the overhead of my own place, a bigger place. But I was running out of space in the 2-car garage.
Yeah.
And so there was a time, about a 3 to 4 year span, where I subcontracted, and the box was, another company took it on, built it, shipped it for me, and I stayed more on focusing on educating customers, educating sales reps, and really building and driving the sales force, trade shows, doing that kind of stuff, and marketing the product. And then they were doing the building.
Wow.
And then at some point, the numbers lined up where it's like, okay, now I can bring this back in house. I can cover the overhead.
Yeah.
And that would have been, we brought it all back in 2016. So just almost 4 years ago now. So got into my facility. We have a shop now in Fort Wayne.
Is that when you hired an employee too?
So I ran it myself for 2 years.
Wow.
And I was doing everything for 2 years, and then the Powerbox sales we kept growing. They kept going up. And I didn't have enough time. I was working I was showing up in the morning at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
Wouldn't leave until 10 p.m.
Yeah.
And it was like, once once I did that for about 2 months, it was like, okay, I think it's time to get somebody on. I started off with some part-time help. We had some college students that just needed a summer job, so it worked out. They came out and they were able. They kind of helped me.
Elements.
Yeah, they were able to do some things, but then it would also help me because I had never trained anyone on these before, so it was kind of a nice bridge, a nice gap, bridge the gap for me from me doing everything to actually hiring somebody full time. Once they went back to school, then I ended up hiring who works with me now, Derek.
Yeah.
And he's a great team member, and he now, at this point, he's been with me almost 2.5 years, and he runs the whole shop. I mean, if he orders material, if it comes in the door, he's in charge of it until it leaves.
Yeah.
And he does everything in the middle. Yeah. So he's taking care of all that and doing a great job, and man, I'm so lucky to have him on the team, and he's doing phenomenal.
Well, I think that's true, like in business, is having the right partners, right? And it seems like, I mean, you could call it luck, but you put yourself in a position, you knock on the doors, and happen the right people signed up, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think it's being smart enough to be lucky, I guess.
Well, and I think something that I noticed, and I think picked up on just through LinkedIn and our interactions prior to actually meeting physically, is I think you're also a very authentic person, so people tend to want to, if you're authentic and genuine and they know that you're not out to just burn bridges, when you build relationships, it opens doors.
Relationships are more important to me than a dollar. Absolutely. And there's a lot of examples, but I honestly, that's the way I want to do it. And even with the idea behind this podcast and even wanting to do something like this, again, it's going out, reaching out, meeting people, and building those relationships. And but no, I appreciate the compliment there. It is, but it's for me, it is about relationships. It's about helping people. It's about, I'd rather have you taken care of now than me taken care of later. Like I'm not worried about myself. I want to make sure everybody else has what they need to get what they get the job done.
Well, I'm sure you found every now and again there's always those people that'll take advantage of that. But for the most part, I think they attract what you are, and it sounds like
they do. But I don't know. It's not as, I guess, the big picture, and that's what I'm always looking. I'm always looking, we're going to do something now, but how does that affect a year, 2 years, 5 years?
Right.
There's definitely people that don't have best intentions in mind, or their own intentions are their best intentions. They don't last long.
Yeah.
They don't. Yeah. You might be able to fool somebody for a little bit, or you might be able to gain something right now. Yeah. But you're not gaining something long term.
Right.
It's not going to happen. It's not a long game, and I'm definitely in for the long game.
Right.
And if I take some knocks along the way.
Yeah, that's part of the learning process, right?
It's part of it. I'll learn from it.
But you also learn,
and it'll make me better. And we're fine.
I think you also learn to see those people sooner, right? Because I still tell people, a bad customer is not worth, whatever the revenue you think you're going to get from it. I can remember a project.
Oh, definitely.
In my property restoration career, and it was always, to me, some people pride themselves on stealing a project from somebody else, whereas I always felt like, hey, especially when I was in Eugene, it's a small town, right? So you know who the players are that are good, the ones that are pretty much run up the road, or, kind of, they do decent. Yeah. And then, there are a few guys that are just like, man, I don't know what the customer saw in that person, right? But if somebody else got it, you like high five, we'll get the next one. And but we had a project where a company that I respected got kicked off the job, and the customer calls us. I think the insurance company called us to say, hey, the customer's getting rid of it. I remember telling my manager, I was like, if they got kicked off, there's something wrong. Like there's something wrong with this customer.
Red flag, yeah.
That those people run a pretty good shop, and he goes, well, but the revenue, and it's like
how did it work out for you guys?
Try not to give away too much, but long after I left, they were still in the legal process.
Still dealing with
Yep,
it.
yep. So, I mean, you know, that revenue is gone. You know,
Yeah.
that profit is gone. You know, they're paying money to get the job done. You know, so.
Well, John, I'm looking at the time. We've been at this for 35 minutes already, and it's just I know it went by fast. I do want. There's a couple of things that I want to make sure anyone listening knows about you. So, the dojo, the Do Your Job dojo.
Yeah.
You know, kind of tell us a little bit about that. Why you started it? What your kind of goal is there? What is the dojo?
Yeah. So the Do Your Job dojo. Do your job. I think the thing that crystallizes the most important thing, if you and I are on a team, right? The most important thing is you do your job, I do my job, right? If we do that, we have a team. A lot of people think, and I can remember when I was managing people, I'd tell them, you know, a lot of people, when a new team member comes in, they want to do everything for them, and it's like, no, that's not. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's not that's not teamwork. Teamwork is you doing your job, I do my job, and then when you face, and that also is the basis of trust, right? If I can trust that you're doing your job, I really don't care how much you're making or what you're doing. If you're doing your job, I respect that. If I'm doing my job, you're going to respect me. You know, you may not like always how I go about it, or you may have a difference of opinion, but it's like, you know, you're doing your job. And then when there comes an issue where, hey, I need some help, you know, I handle my business, I do my job, and if I'm asking you for help, it's legitimate, right? I'm not crying wolf. And so that's when we collaborate and come together and say, hey, I need to help this person out. And something I'm learning that's really unique here at Three Kings is the ability to speak freely, when you need something, or try to bring it up early. Most of my restoration career has been, you just try to deal with it and hope it works out, right? Whereas this company has really, one of the things is talking about humility. And so being able to go to your teammates and say, hey, I think I might have an issue here. Does anybody have any ideas, Or even at the bidding phase, just say, can you take a peek at this and look this over, make sure I'm not missing something? That's
so really kind of reaching out and trusting your team.
Yeah. Which is
team.
Pretty unique, yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people talk about teamwork, and it's like, well, you guys are on a team, you should trust each other. No. We need to build trust, and if we trust each other, we will work together, And again, that comes down to, do your job. If you're doing your job, I can trust you, And so, like I was talking about earlier, I think unique in my experience, I had really good mentors. Denis was one. My father-in-law actually taught me a lot. He was my partner in our construction company, and so he had the basis, the knowledge in almost everything. He's kind of a jack of all his whole life, and so he taught me huge things and piecing together things about business. And so that's kind of, anyways, I guess a long way around, like trying to help people understand the basics of business and how to, and I think a lot of it comes down to people, right? When you build a team, when you decide to build a team, you've got to invest in your people and bring the best out of them. That's the difference in managing yourself and managing others and building something that's sustainable. I think whatever advances in technology, people are always going to be the core component, of a business. And so, learning how, that's the harder stuff, how to motivate and discipline and train.
And that's kind of the stuff that you're talking about then with so on your website, you have some, I guess, what's on there? What are people going to find if they go to?
We've got some videos. I did a free ebook on the 10 Commandments of estimating success.
Okay.
They got some traction. And then here recently, I think this will be the third month, I've been doing a monthly column with Restoration and Remediation magazine.
Oh, R&R.
Yep, with them, called The Intentional Restorer. So that's been articles and accompanying videos that kind of go with that, and some resources. And so that's the thing. It's I don't feel like I definitely don't have it nailed down, but the important thing is being intentional. Whether it's GMS or you're building a team, or if you're a one-man show, you've got to be intentional about kind of where you're heading. And like you said, if you're out there knocking on doors, you can find avenues, right? And you can adjust your course as you go and get better at it. I'm sure there's plenty of changes that have been to your boxes and your whole process and everything. And so, and the same in business. If you're not moving, you can't adapt or change, so it's not.
But I think, even going with that, one of the things that I always tell myself or really believe in, you're either moving forward or you're moving backwards.
Yeah.
You're never staying the same.
Yeah.
If you think you're staying the same, you're moving backwards.
Yeah.
That's where you're going. So
well, that grow or die. Yeah.
Yeah. So even with the product, either the product's growing and getting better, or it's not, or even myself or my team, or anything that I have influence on.
Yeah.
And myself, I really do believe that you're either moving forward and getting better, or you're moving backwards.
Well, I think that's that intentional component, right? Is this is 2020. It's the beginning of a new decade. It's the beginning of a new year. A lot of people are thinking about vision and purpose and those kinds of things. So when you start to articulate those things and put them down on paper, it doesn't mean that you're bound to only that, or that you're even going to reach that. But you have to have a target, right? You have to say, hey, where do I want to be at the end of this year? And I know you were talking about that with GMS. Do you want to grow it, or how do you want to go about that?
You said obtainable.
Yeah.
You said obtainable, definable goals.
Yep. And looking a year, 5 years, 10 years, you can either go, hey, I'm starting here. By the end of the year, I want to be here and here and here, and you can build it that way. Or you can say, man, where do I want to be in 10 years, and then roll it backwards. It does. Either way is helpful, and sometimes it's helpful to do both. But if you don't set a target, you won't hit it.
Well, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here, because we're about targets and deadlines.
Okay.
I heard about a book.
Yes. Well, yeah. I'm pretty excited. I'm not pretty excited. I am excited. I've got a book that I'm working on with a collaboration of authors on leadership topic, and how kind of the goal right now is simple things. How do simple things translate into building a culture? And one of those, the kind of the core principle is like toilet paper. So if in your executive suite you have 2-ply nice toilet paper, but down in your staff restroom you have 1-ply toilet paper, something simple like that creates those divisions in leadership and translate to your culture. And so that's kind of, it's still in the works, but Insurance Nerds has, they're going to help us publish it and edit it. So we have...
I haven't heard of that. What's Insurance Nerds?
Insurance Nerds is Tony Canis and Carly Burnham. They wrote a book, Insuring Tomorrow, and kind of focusing on the millennials, how people can engage with millennials. And so it's specific to the insurance market, more on like the agency side.
Okay.
And that's kind of their purview, but man, extremely applicable to anybody dealing with the modern workforce. I mean, if you say millennials, it's the modern workforce. Those are people that are coming into the workforce now.
Sure.
And so
so that's who's working with you on this. This next venture.
They have a whole network of people and topics and those kinds of things. So they've got a really good presence in young professionals, and they have voices from all ranges. And so that's going to be a fun project. And then myself, I've been working on a book, and I just got to get it nailed down. That kind of my that training process. I have a chart that talks about kind of, I don't know if you heard of John Wooden's building blocks of success, or his pyramid of success. I'm sorry. He has kind of a specific process that's really complex, but so I made kind of a simplified version that helped me in my career with property restoration on how to train people. And because in property restoration, it's no longer you specialize in one area and we can focus on that. You have to be, there's 12, 15 different things you have to know how to do.
Yeah.
So
when is there any time when this book may be coming out?
The collaborative publication hopefully comes out sooner. We're talking about first drafts, I believe in February.
Okay.
And so a lot of that'll, how well that all comes together. It's it's a lot different writing one book by yourself than writing with a collaborative.
Sure.
And so, but the people that have signed on all are excited about the concept, and I really wanted a broad range of industries and experiences and cultural backgrounds and those kinds of things. So we hit a lot of those marks. So it'll be interesting. It's a first for me, so it'll be interesting to see. And then the other one, that'll take precedence. I would love to have the other one, maybe by my own by the end of the year or first part of next year.
Okay.
So.
Well, yeah, well, keep me
That would be
updated
cool.
on
Yeah.
how that's going. Well, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up here. Is there any kind of final thought? Anything you wanna get out before we turn this off?
Man, I'm excited to meet you in person, and welcome to the Pacific Northwest. And we used the product when I was managing a company here locally. If anybody's not aware of the GMS distribution box, it's a lifesaver. Being able to get extra power, to help your client, and it's also obviously a line item that you can charge for. And your product is superior. I mean, it's light. It's got all the different tails, so it's just plug and go. And
Well, I appreciate that.
Your commitment shows through your authenticity, and your commitment to customer service is, you should definitely, maybe you can write the manual on that, because your willingness to go to unique ends to make sure people are taken care of is very unique, and obviously a reason why you're where you are.
Well, yeah,
So,
I think, no, I appreciate that, and the very first thing that's important to me is make sure the customer's taken care of.
Yeah.
So,
which is clear, and that's awesome.
well, great. We'll go ahead and wrap this up. John, thank you.
Yeah.
Very nice having you here. Great conversation. Lost track of time a little bit, but
Yeah.
that's only a good thing.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we are broadcasting live out of the Three Kings studio.
Yeah.
Here, just
beautiful Sumner, Washington.
just south of Seattle. That's
And
us.
a heat wave. It's like 60 degrees right now. So.
It did get warm. Yeah, it's still raining, but it's but warm. All right, that'll do it for us. Signing off. Hey, thanks everybody.
Thank you.